it's coming along. I'm still a little disappointed about how deep it is. I need to stop going on about it. The inside looks just fine. On the back wall, I've been through a track plan magazine and found something that looks sort of kind of like that junction would have. I'll trim that piece off and we'll put that on the back wall in there. And so when you're looking through the windows, it will look like there's at least a feasible track layout. Now, there's only one lifted siding, but there could have been more. Who knows? Perhaps they gave the ground back to the cricket people. The story behind the signal box being so low, it's right at the runway is right here, so you wouldn't want a big tall building. You'd have to have red flashing lights on top of it, wouldn't you? So modeler's license, that's all I'm saying. Let's get this thing finished. Now, for about half a minute there, I thought about adding a second wall down the middle and trying to convince you that there was a cottage in the back half. Don't be silly. Then you'd have had to put windows and chimneys and who knows what. We've got to leave something to the viewer's imagination. Now, where are our windows and what do they look like? Not too bad. So you can clearly see, oh, what's all that brown? Well, only the green bit shows, and I'm looking, did I miss anything? I didn't. So now all I got to do is cut around these and we'll have windows. Well, there we have a, yeah, okay, it's a little rough, but it's all right. And there's a track map in the back. I do have a couple of things that are going to spruce it up just a little bit. There's a downpipe here. Do you see that? I even had the sense to paint it. Oh, there's two of them. Paint them before I stuck them on. And the other magic trick is I have this. Ooh, it's a ratio one, so we'll need painting. I'll be fine. There's the wheel for the level crossing. Now, I'd love to have that rotate. No, we can't, surely. Oh, look. No, we can't do that. But it would be lovely, and then have a guy on the end of it jumping up and down as it turned or something. Maybe in the future. I'm not that good a modeler yet. We'll get there. I may regret having stuck that on the back quite so readily. There is somewhere for that on the diagram here, but we'll behave ourselves. Let's not run before we can walk. Every now and again you change your mind. I know I do. I got this kit out and even started putting it together. It's a lovely signal box interior. It even has the wheel, the windy wheel for the level crossing gates. But I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to say this is done. I'm going to put it on the layout. The bottom is not glued in. I can just pop that out and make a base if I change my mind back again. But this one is big enough for the deal signal box. And I need to put an interior in that one at some point. I can't just walk into a model shop and buy interiors. I've got to order them and I don't know if they're available. So I'm going to hold off. I'll show you the semi-finished signal box in just a moment. We're going to come back and we're going to put a fire in it and we're going to put lights in it. We're going to put a ground frame in it and all that good stuff. But for now, it's done. I think you're going to like that because it means in the next video, we're just going to be running trains. I'm going to thin the layout out and run trains. You ready? In the grand scheme of things, I think it looks rather good. It will do. Presumably waiting for its old route back to the airport. I wonder what these trains used to carry. I had no intention of bringing the Gronk up here. It found its own way. One of the things I haven't yet done is clean a lot of the newly ballasted track. It's had a good ballast cleaning and it's had a vacuum, but it hasn't had the surface of the rails really dealt with. So it'll be interesting to see how something with a bit of a longer wheelbase deals with that. I can hear the difference. It's kind of interesting. I've always had very quiet running up there. So this is the first long wheelbase train around the new section. And without a bother. I've been thinning trains out and moving them around. It doesn't look like it, does it? I've actually removed half a dozen trains from the layout. Most of the fiddle yards are now empty, which is a big help. But Houston, we've got a problem. All the trains are running. I have computer control, I have DCC control, but not a single point is changing. And I have not yet been able to find out why. So we're going to do some basic fault finding and we'll find it. This was supposed to be a big old running session. Now, there's a couple of things you have to do. The first thing you must do is whenever you make changes, you must always test things at every stage, and I didn't. Let me describe the fault to you, first of all. Rather a nasty little one. I was busily driving trains and switching points and having lots of fun. Not very much of it caught on video. I was going to put them all in the right place and then show you. And I managed to drop one of my controllers. I've had to repair this one a number of times. It was a bit silly. I dropped it. So I disconnected it. Now, things had been working right here. Nothing had changed, but nothing worked. So with most faults, especially in a system that's very reliable, I have never had this problem in 15 years. You always ask the question, well, what changed? That changed. That's interesting. The lights on the... Oh, I see. Yeah, the lights on this end of the layout have gone out. That would tell me something to do with the 9-volt bus, which is interesting because I just ran that, didn't I? Was the dropping of the controller coincidental? And since the points are connected directly to the rails, why aren't they working? So what I'm going to do is eliminate 70 or 80% of the layout, strip it right down, cut it all off, not physically. I'm just going to disconnect it all at a convenient break point and we'll have a look, see what we find. It's got to be solvable. I'm thinking back, which is always a good thing to do. The very first one that didn't work, you might remember the Gronk, and I sent it off and I was expecting it to go down this track and it went down this one. And I tried to change the points that it wouldn't, so I let it go all the way around, brought it to here and then reversed it to where I wanted it. That was the first one not to change. Now I haven't been underneath there. Point motors for that are under this hill. But I have been down here. And so maybe in this spaghetti I've knocked something. I see there's a few. But what would it be? Let me draw up a fault-finding circuit diagram as far as I can remember. Come on. All right, so we have a DCC blob that talks to the track. And this is usually called the bus. Generally, that's how it's referred. Also coming out of that is LocoNet. And it runs off on a 2-wire thing to hand controllers. Like that. I think somebody recently called it a knob box, didn't they? Yes, very funny. Also coming out of there is power going in. Pin. We have to say that that's okay. The loco net also comes out of there goes to a magic box. That's an interface. I usually try to get clever with that, but I won't today. And that goes to the computer. Does that look like a computer? So on this first reading, we can say that the computer's working. It had been off. It is on and it is working. It is talking to that box is talking to this box. Now what it's saying is another whole thing entirely, but it is talking. The controllers are talking to that box and that box is talking to the track. So you would say that all of this is working. There is not quite as simple as that, sadly. So for example, there is a ground wire, that must be connected between the two systems or it just doesn't work. That is suspect number one. But usually when that's not connected, nothing works and most things are working. Next, we're going to look at the bus. So here comes the bus. Ding, ding. It goes to the rails. Like that. And the points come off like that. So point motors. I don't believe they all come off of one point, pun intended. So this is point motor, PM. I do know that once it does that, any points in that vicinity, point motor, are connected like this. Now, they all have a particular unique address, point motor. I haven't tried every single one of them, but every one I have, there's a lot of them, it would take me a while, but every one I have tried is not functioning. Now, I think what happens is that this bus runs around the layout and these things are picked off at various points. I don't believe it all comes back to one point, but it might. It may be that I ran a separate bus, point bus. Now, if I did do that, that is obviously where I should be looking. But I don't know where that point is, and I would have to start hunting for it. So it does mean we've got to disassemble one of the workbenches and get under there. This was a job for 3 months from now when we started messing about, cleaning up and getting a fiddle yard built. Let me show you. That isn't nearly as bad as it looks. There's several boards just like that. Up under here is where there's not very much up there, but that's the magic box. Here's one of the other issues. This bench, you haven't seen this one, I don't believe. It sits behind me and there's not much room between it and the board and it moves around. It's on wheels and so it often moves, which is never good for cables. On top of that, you see that white square there? That is where sticky pads have come unstickied. And so there's a lot of that up under this board where, although it doesn't look like very much, see there's nothing on that one anymore. But these are all just hanging, which isn't a good thing. Is the end of the line, as it were. I could disconnect those, couldn't I, and put my guards van on there and see if there's anything there. That's actually not a bad idea, Ian. track power indicator across there. Built one of those, wasn't it? Leopard's Tail just built one, but I could put my guard's van wheels on there and that would do the same thing. Typically they go into these crimps, goes into another one, so somewhere those three then are all joined together. They used to be on a sticky pad, and somewhere in there, I can't see which is the other end of that, there'll be two wires coming out of there and heading off somewhere. It's not that, don't worry. There are two wires, which is interesting. By that I mean that pair will be the bus, I expect. But we're right in the thick of it, and we're not very far away from the start. This is a plug actually, but power in, obviously working, so the first two we can eliminate. Rail A and rail B, they're working, so we can eliminate them. These in the middle, one either side of the programming track, and this is that ground wire I was talking to you about. That does need to be connected, we found. Locanet A and B, and there's switches. Sometimes I wonder if those switches are in the wrong place. It's in HO and it's in run, not sleep. Run. That turned it off. Yeah, well, I don't think it's that. All the lights went out on the trains when I did that. Plugging the controller back in and pressing power on. Some of the train lights came on, which tells me that there's power on the track. I will attempt to change a point. One right in front of me. That's the one with the big hole under it, so I can see through it. Switch number 4, isn't that one, I think? There's a big old number 4 there, so yes, that's 4. Switch number 4, throw, close, nothing. So the one right in front of us isn't working. Let me put loco wheels on that. So these are the wires, and what I'm doing is simply joining those wires to the wheels of the guard van, and I've only got two hands, but it did light up. So that tells me there's power on the wires I'm holding. That little light on the back of that guard van was very useful, wasn't it? I'm glad I did that. What I need to do is build such a thing into something like this. If you haven't seen this, you turn it on and put it near wires, and it will tell you if there's power in them. But you've never seen that before and wouldn't know to trust it. And so you use the red light, which you actually didn't see, which was no help, was it? I feel like Doctor Who with this thing. Just change its colour. Bye. In one sense, that's encouraging. So there's power on the points. They're getting a feed. So it looks like either one of two things. So it's not a physical thing. Honestly, the physical thing, it looks a little untidy, but the mechanical, electrical thing I'm good at. I would be surprised if it were that. It can be. We all make mistakes. But that tells me the points aren't getting what they're expecting. So one of two things, or several things, but two main things could have happened. One, remember the computer was off. We had a power cut. We had a big storm again. Remember the branch on the roof? But the power went out and back on again. That took the computer out. I need to put a new battery in the UPS, the uninterrupted power supply, because it isn't doing its job. Could be the computer, but why then? So I think it's more likely to be that when I dropped this thing, it went into some other mode. I don't know. Perhaps it reprogrammed all the points. I don't know that either. I'm going to get out the handbook and see if I can find out how to program those points. It's been so many years. I've got a few extra point motors. What I'm going to do is hook up another one and try and program it for something. I've got to do that anyway because we're adding a fiddle yard at some point. So let's figure out how to do that. So it gets all complicated and technical, and I was so looking forward to running some trains. Anyway, there are very few trains with open points in front of them, but just so we can say we did run a train, there goes the night mail. Running sweetly off into the night. That needs a flashing light on the back. I've got into LocoNet. I've selected one of the points. I know it's address 5. I'm checking it is working. And we're going to test it. Nothing changed. So LocoNet is not talking to the points. So now we've got to figure out why. It might be that the address of that point, of all the points, has been reset somehow. That would be terrible because there's an awful lot of programming if that's the case. But we're going to get a point out and see if we can make it work. You DC people are giving me grief now. I can hear your chuckles vibrating over the internet. You saw this locomotive move. The way it moves is that you think of the rails as 2 wires and a pulsy signal is sent up those 2 wires to a chip in there which makes this thing do something. All of these points are controlled by a point motor, which is right there. And those 2 wires are getting to the points. And we simply send a signal up the 2 wires, same 2 wires, to a much simpler chip, which just goes, oh yes, or oh no. And the chips are not listening to the signal they should be getting. But there is power on all the point motors from those rails in the same way that there is power on that loco from those rails. You remember we had a certain number of chips that were losing their coding and I changed them. I suppose it's possible that it's happened to all of the points at once. They may have got to have a reset, have a little think. Found the box. A pack of 12 point motors. Ta-da! One instruction book, literally one. Ooh, I didn't see that. What's that? That's the bits, probably. Oh, there's 2 lots of bits. There must be another point motor somewhere. Not one in there. Not one in there. There is one here. Right, so here's the setup. There's the track power indicator on the back of the guards van. Here is the point motor. Here are the instructions. And here is what I love. Digital lifetime warranty. Love it. Seriously, I doubt it's going to be anything to do with these because these have been absolutely brilliant. Bit noisy is the only thing. All right, so I'm going to hook this up to the track power. I'll show you how. So these are the connections. DCC in, the first 2. Switch 1, frog, left, right. All the others, lovely. And all you do is you just push down on with the screwdriver. Push down, and that's connected. And then same with the other side. So that's it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a crocodile clip on there and hook that to the rail. So that's how we're going to get our DCC to the point motor. But first we're going to read the instructions and see what it tells us to do. Still waiting. Still waiting. I've read them. None the wiser. I've now got to figure out how you program a point. You'd think I'd remember I did this whole layout, but it was so long ago. So now I've got to get the book out and figure out how you program a point. And I really, really don't want to be programming, well, I know there's a little switch, but I don't want to do that and then find I'm programming all the locomotives as well. There must be a way, because I've done it before. We're just going to have to figure it out together, aren't we? We're in the middle of some fun and games, aren't we? My word. Let me show you what I've done so far. There are 2 wires going to that switch motor, and that switch motor should be number 4. But what I've done is I've taken those 2 wires out of there and put those 2 wires on the wheels of the old faithful bubble car. And everything the bubble car should do, it does. It turns its lights on and off, it goes forwards and backwards. So the conclusion I have is that DCC is indeed getting to the point motors. You might remember I was in the middle of programming this point motor and I'm unable to do so, not because I don't know how. It's quite a game to find out how, by the way. But no, it's the controller, for whatever reason, is not talking to that point motor via the rails. So the next thing, disconnect the rails completely. That disconnects the entire layout. And then connect 2 wires, and I had these 2 wires here. Connect these 2 wires directly to the point motor. So there's nothing other than this box, this power supply, and a point motor. Still nothing. But if you put the locomotive on those same 2 wires, away we go. From this, we conclude, from a connection point of view, everything's fine. From an electrical point of view, everything's fine. From a communications point of view, most things are fine. So DCC is indeed getting out of this box and going to whatever we hook up to it. But it is, for whatever reason, incapable of communicating that kind of DCC. So it's had a little brain burp, it would appear. It's the same whether I use this controller or this controller. So we have 2 controllers behaving exactly the same way. Circumstantial, but it looks like this box is doing something it hadn't oughta. But that's all. We'll draw a few things on paper first. Well, at this point, the workers still have not figured out what the problem with the DCC controller not controlling points is. I have just replaced the logic battery. That needed doing. I've tried to reset the thing, but yeah, we're getting there, but it's going to take a minute. Let me just talk to you about fault finding. Here I am telling you about fault finding, and I haven't found it yet. I'm just going to give you a bunch of blocks like this. And like this. I'm just going to keep going. And we're just going to say, oh, I don't know, this, any system, and this is, we're just joining these bits together. And we just put letters on them so we know where we are. It might be that we've got a microphone plugged into here. There we go, a microphone, and we've got a speaker plugged into this end. How about that? And whatever's going on, somewhere along the line, this might be a mic preamp, this might be an audio mixer, this might be a multi-core cable, this might be another amplifier, whatever, or effects units. Or it might be, let's say it's a switch. There we go, it's a switch. And when we press that switch, it does this, 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 and then at this end, the train goes along. There are several methods in how you find faults. One is you start at the beginning, you test this, you go to this block, is that working? Is that working? Is that working? You go along. In my world, there is something called the half split method. What you do is you divide the system in half and you test there. Is it working there? And if it is working there, you have just eliminated all of that. If it is not working there, you have just eliminated all of that. So just by breaking the system in half, whatever it is, you eliminate a significant chunk of the system. We have a box. In my case, what is the number on that thing? DCS 200. Oh, that's an old one. DCS 200. And it's being controlled by controllers. One of them has, it looks a bit like that, and the other one, it looks a bit like that. Hello. And it has a power supply coming in. So this is a little, it's a little bit of a star system because there's something in the middle, and then there's a computer. You might remember that goes off to a box that goes off to a computer. And then this goes off to the track, and it also goes off to point motors. Just for your info, it does, in my particular case, these point motors do come off of the track. They come off in batches. None of them are directly connected to the bus. They come, the bus runs around the board and they come off of that at various points. Some of them are strung together daisy chain, just so that there's not a connection to every point motor from the bus, but yeah. So in this instance, what's the half split? Well, disconnect that. How about that? So you disconnect there. So you've now eliminated all of the points and all of the track, but the base system is working. And that's what I did, and I then hooked a DCC locomotive up to that, and it was working. And then what I did is I went to the next block along. In reality, the half split method would say, if you're not working there, then what you do is you go halfway again. So you go either side or you go into this one. Is that working? And if that's working, you've eliminated those two, and so you know it's somewhere here. So it's a way of quickly finding out which bit is wrong without having to start at the beginning and go through every piece. So the reason this is quicker is that, okay, so in this instance, if I had started this end and gone 1, 2, I would have found it in 3 instead of 1, 2, 3. I understand that. But if it was this one, I've eliminated those. And now what I'm going to do is go half of here. That's 1, 2, and I've now found it here. So I've found it in 3, where it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would have been many more moves to get to that place. In this instance, what's going on is I could have started at the point motor and tested each point motor and tested the programming and all of that. Instead, I just disconnected essentially the whole layout. About 80% of the whole system had gone away, and it still wasn't working. So you can now make an assumption that the layout itself is fine, especially when you take out the DCC feed to this point motor, one at the end of a chain, and then run a locomotive successfully on it. So Bottom line, this thing, all the lights are coming on all over the place. When we started out, the computer wasn't even turned on, so you can eliminate that. This one got dropped, and soon after, this thing decided it wasn't going to control point motors, no matter what I plugged into it, whether this, which hadn't been connected, neither of those were, or this. He's getting freckles, isn't he, there? Our guy there. So we do know that the battery in that was low, and I have changed that. It didn't make any impact. My strong suspicion now is that there is something going on with that. I wondered if there was a soft option somewhere that would tell this not to change points, but if there is, I can't find it. I know there are a whole bunch of soft switches that I'm going to have a look at over tea tonight. But worst case scenario is I will have to replace that box. I do need a second one because I want to use a booster, another one, on the fiddle yard. I should have used more than one in the first place. But so I may just order one and replace it and see, does that make a difference? If it does, then figure out what's wrong with that. At that point, I would probably send it to Digitrax and say, here's one of your boxes. Could you fix it, please? But this is not a 5-minute job. So we're going to get on with something else. In the next video, we're going to do something with this. Now, this is a tower. It looks to me like it's a windmill tower. It's made by Walthers. They tend to be relatively good kits. They're usually painted in weird colors or not painted at all. This one is grey plastic. It has a nice footprint. So what on earth am I doing with that? We're not putting windmills up. We're going to make a radio station. I used to have one, and it used to have a real antenna that actually transmitted. But we're not going to go that far this time. We're just going to build a radio station and a radio mast. Looks like there is one in that box, doesn't it? So as usual, I'm completely unconcerned about things that go wrong around me. I've figured out to worry about the things you can change and not the things you can't. So we haven't found the fault, so I still can't run trains. Even if there was a circuit that was set and I could run on a loop, but there isn't. But we're going to get it working. We will get there, but we'll do some other stuff until we do. Thanks for watching. There's a few trains I can move, but they can't. So we'll see you next time. See you now.